This story involves Jim Callaghan, the former Prime Minister, and I was a producer on World in Action, and we were covering the Westland affair, which was a crisis in the Conservative government involving the purchasing of helicopters, with Michael Heseltine on one side and the old Britain on the other side. And it seemed to us it would be a really interesting thing to do, to see if we could get all of the former Prime Ministers who were still alive to say, in these circumstances, if I was Mrs. Thatcher, I would resign. So we were lining them all up and to come onto an outside broadcast programme, and it was part of my job to contact Jim Callaghan. And I asked Jim Callaghan would he be prepared to be on the programme, and he said yes he would, and asked the time and the place, etc., etc., and it was fine. And then time went on. We didn't know who was going to chair this debate, but eventually it was clear that it was going to be Peter Jay who was going to chair it. Well, Peter Jay had, until fairly recently at the time, been Jim Callaghan's son-in-law. But of course there'd been an acrimonious divorce, all sorts of unpleasant circumstances, and they'd gone their separate ways. So I didn't really know how to handle this. But I knew that I couldn't not tell Jim Callaghan that this was happening. So I called him a few days before the programme and said, Mr. Callaghan, we're absolutely delighted that you've agreed to be on the World in Action programme. I said, I didn't know really whether I ought to be saying this to you or not, but just so that you're aware, you should know that the programme will be chaired by Peter Jay. Jim Callaghan didn't skip a beat, didn't miss a beat at all. He said, that's absolutely fine, thank you very much indeed for letting me know. I completely understand why you have let me know, but it's absolutely no problem whatsoever. And he put down the phone, and we never heard from him again. Didn't turn up for the programme and wouldn't answer any calls about the programme. And I thought afterwards what an incredibly clever thing this was, because if he'd gone up in a blue light and said, you know, how dare you, or anything of that kind, I won't appear with this man, there was a potential news story. If he'd gone ahead and appeared on the programme, it would have been a news story that he was appearing with his son-in-law, with whom he was at odds. But just the kind of consummate politician to spot all the opportunities and problems in a moment and react in a way that gave no rise to no possible sort of adverse coverage of anything of that kind, but just to say absolutely no problem at all, put the phone down and disappear, I thought afterwards was absolutely masterly. Needless to say, we then didn't fulfil our ambition of getting all the politicians on the programme. We made the programme with Peter Jay, and it was a pretty good programme, but it didn't have all of the former Prime Ministers on it. That was Jim Callaghan.